What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening to the overall markets thus far, what earnings just came out that are very important, what you should be watching for as time goes on. But before I break into the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks. And this offer ends very, very soon in just about 9 hours. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I want to call out something very important. Tesla had this nice triple top-like formation and hit this top 3 times. 1, 2, 3 rejected. And then right here, it actually got this little rebound, forming this another very symmetrical looking a shoulder and a possible head and shoulders like structure. You could also describe this as a triple top rejection, which oftentimes leads to more downside. But the question is, will Tesla get that confirmed break to the downside, or is this just another trap, and is Tesla about to run with the market? I'm going to give you guys some answers in the next couple of minutes. But let's first talk about some more important stuff. So tomorrow is going to be Friday, March 1st, and we have some important data coming out. At 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI coming out. This is quite important. We're going to be watching to see how the manufacturing sector is doing. Then it's 10 o'clock a.m., 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the rest of the data coming out. We have more manufacturing numbers, construction spending, and more manufacturing data for new orders. This is going to be one of the most important things, new orders and manufacturing prices. It'll give us more data on how inflation is looking and how strong the economy is with these orders. And then finally, we also have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment data coming out. So you have the Michigan 5-year inflationary expectations, the current conditions report, and all of that's going to be very important as well. But basically, in a nutshell, all the data comes out for the first 30 minutes tomorrow. That's going to cause some high volatility. And then after that, starting at 10:15 a.m., we have Logan and Waller giving a speech. At 12:15 p.m., we have Bostic giving a speech. Then finally, we at 1:30 p.m., we have Daly from the Fed giving a speech, and then Kugler giving a speech at 3:30. So a bunch of Fed speakers throughout the day after that, after all the data comes out, and that's going to conclude our trading week. So it's going to be very interesting. There's not as much crazy data coming out going into next week, but we do have something else approaching. We're getting closer to FOMC in a few weeks, and we'll see what else happens. Now, for today in the morning, I went over all of this already, which is why I'm not going over this in as much detail. But the PC data report was aligned with expectations this morning. The market basically pumped very hard, came back down intraday, then bounced, and ended up just showing a V-shaped recovery for many of the indices, for ETFs as well. Tesla was a little bit weak, though, despite that. So that's what's been going on in the markets. We'll see how things go as well. Now, to break down some more information, I just want to mention that we have some earnings coming out. We had Fisker and Dell announcing their earnings today. And then going into tomorrow, we have Plug and Fubo TV. Now, Fisker was not doing very well. We actually saw the shares drop very hard after some big concerns were announced. So 2023 was a very challenging year for Fisker. There were a lot of delays with suppliers and other issues that hurts them, especially from delivering their Ocean SUV. And then on top of this, they mentioned that they're going to be concluding that there is a growth concern out there. There is a growth concern, something that's not what you want to hear. They intend on cutting 15% of their workforce very, very soon. They also mentioned that for Q4, there was a loss of $1.23 on a $200.1 million. And then on top of this, for 2023, they saw a loss of $2.22, which is worse than what we saw, the year before. The loss was $1.80. Right? Revenue was less in 2023 than it was in 2022. So now what are we seeing for 2024? For this year, the outlook is much more conservative. They're saying that they're only expecting to reach 20 to 22,000 Oceans worldwide. That's the deliveries. So that's not very, very good. A slight concern, a lot of negative outlook, not the best of earnings. That's why the share price is down like about 30%. It's an absolutely insane drop. Now, when it comes to Dell shares ended up soaring 15% after beating earnings expectations. You guys can see it right over here. They did relatively well. Now, the EPS was at $2.20. That's beating expectations. Revenue was $22.32 billion, beating expectations. For the fiscal 2024 fourth quarter, we did see a little bit of a drop in their revenue compared to the quarter a year ago. but their net income was not bad. It's actually up 89%. That's actually stronger than before. But what really helps this thing run, so the earnings were decent. We weren't expecting them to be the strongest ever, but they were still quite decent. But what helped, excuse me, what helped this thing was the fact that we had some very, very strong uh, guidance. So they're saying that their strong AI optimized server momentum continues with orders increasing 40%, which is absolutely insane. And then they're also talking about how with the strong momentum, we're expecting some very good returns of growth for the fiscal 2025, which is absolutely insane. So that's awesome news for us. We had good guidance as well, and also for other things moving forward. And we're expecting a lot of growth thanks to the AI sector, especially for 2025 and the remainder of this year. Great news for Dell. Share prices are up 15%. Awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. Now let's talk about SPY. Tomorrow is March 1st. We have something very interesting. We have about 269,000 calls expiring. And then we also have about just under, actually a little bit over 900,000 puts expiring, a 3.35 put to call ratio with 500 being max pain. With that happening, what does this mean? Most people have shorts tomorrow. Most people are betting the market's going to crash tomorrow. Does that mean the market's going to crash? I think there's a very good chance we get a decent close because of this, and we'll see how this goes. The majority of the time, we do see SPY squeeze or hold up, the market hold up thanks to this. Another example is today. So today we had a 3.0 puts to call ratio, and look at how SPY closed. SPY was down a little bit, then we got this nice little pump at the end of the day, and we saw this thing actually approach the all-time high again. So the chart does look bullish, and we're going to be watching to see how this affects Tesla. For Tesla, there's been a lot of talks about how Tesla's opening the supercharger network as a very important business that's selling memberships. I do agree with this because when you look at Ford and other companies which are launching the supercharger access, this gives Tesla a lot more power and control over this. Because even if Tesla is selling, millions of cars here and there, they're going to be gaining control and an ability to sell memberships, sell their supercharger network to millions and millions of more vehicles simultaneously as EVs continue to grow and adopt their system. So this is going to be generating billions of dollars in revenue for Tesla. Tesla Energy is huge. Their supercharger network is another big business. I'm seeing a lot of news about this as we're seeing Ford and other big EVs adopting Tesla's overall their network. So it's very, very great news for them. Good news for Tesla, very, very big business. And right now, there's some talk about a Tesla seeing over $1 billion in revenue just from this alone. And very soon, globally, this may be reaching a $10 billion business, a $10 billion business just from the charging network alone for Tesla. That is what projections are suggesting according to this article. Now, for Tesla, we also had about 85 million in volume, so a little bit less volume. It's just very choppy during these times. We saw the price pairs ratio, the short volume went up just a little bit, but the price pairs ratio, this is actually very important. This is starting to hold up a little bit, not as strong as before. That means that Tesla's not in a very, very tough place. So we'll see how it does. It's still kind of flat right here. And on top of this, financial estimates are strong. I'm not seeing any analysts update what they're seeing for Tesla. For seasonality, look for volatility around during the second hour of the day and also during 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So at 11 and then 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., we tend to see more volatility. We tend to be green only about 49% of the time on Fridays, so just be very careful. And then we'll see what else happens. With that being said, let's talk about the technicals. Let's talk about the charts and how things are looking. What do I see happening for Tesla? So for Tesla, I want to call out something very, very important. Okay, I want to warn everyone that something big is going on with the chart right here. Tesla basically has a triple top like formation. This kind of looks like a head and shoulders. We have this left shoulder here. We have a head and maybe a right shoulder, but don't solely trade based off patterns. Okay. That's a lesson I learned. Never, ever solely trade based off patterns. You want to be looking for confirmation breaks. You want to be looking for moves like that. So, what do I mean by this? If this is a head and shoulders and this is a triple top, one could argue that Tesla is going to underperform the market. Some bad news is coming tomorrow. And we have this imbalance over here. We have one here and one here. So if it's like a triple top, right? We have this left shoulder like this. We have the triple top, right? Just like that. And then basically we just form this like right shoulder. So it should come down like this if you're a big bear to at least 195 or even 192. Now, you can't promise that. In order for this to happen, you have to see Tesla lose key support. We have to see Tesla lose 198 and 197.5. If we lose those levels, I expect it to come all the way down to at least 195, if not 192. So that's going to be the expectation if we get a big break below support. However, Tesla could also remain bullish. If Tesla gets a big bounce and some very bullish news comes out tomorrow, Tesla's going to be watching 202.5 as resistance and then 205. If we break 205, Tesla's going to be on its way up to about 210 to 212 in my opinion. So watch for this very carefully. Do we break 205 and turn bullish, or do we lose 198 to 197.5 and turn more bearish? In my opinion, I'm open-minded to anything because it depends on the news and things like that, but I do lean a little bit more in favor of the bears because of this head and shoulders and this triple top rejection. Tesla had the chance, chance after chance after chance to break 205, and it failed every single time. So hopefully, we try to get a break. I would love to see Tesla try to break that level, and I will turn bullish if it happens. But this pattern on Tesla, typically, this leads to downside, and there is a risk of the downside if we end up losing key support. So I'm not saying it will drop. I'm saying that watch support. If we lose that, then we're going to be looking for a bigger drop. This pattern does make that a little bit more probable, so please be very careful, everyone. For SPY is trying to make a big recovery right over here. In my opinion, might cool off a little bit. So watch 507 to be retested and a bounce. Watch 508.5 and then 510 as resistance. And I think it's going to retest 510. Now, just because it retests 510, that does not mean it's just going to break out immediately. If we break 510, that is some very tough resistance. I remember the last time we tested it, we got a rejection the last time we hit 510. So I'll be watching to see if we could break this or not. If we break this 510 resistance up here, we're going to make this color blue instead. If we break this blue big line right here, this resistance at 510, we're going to be pushing for 512. If we fail to do so, we could reject here. So I do think it's going to come down and retest that area, and we'll see if we reject or not. It could even be forming kind of like a cup and handle and eventually break out. So there is potential for it to break to a new all-time high, but watch and see just to be safe. If we're bearish, we have to lose 507, then 505, and then 503 is coming next. But in my opinion, I think that SPY is looking kind of bullish when I look at the technicals on it, especially on the 4-hour time frame. The direction looks like it's going to push higher. So I think what's going to happen is it comes down in the morning, grabs liquidity, and starts pushing up for 510. And we'll see if we break this. If we break it, 512 could come. If we fail to break it, we could cool off. There are a lot of puts expiring on SPY, so there's going to be manipulation. So just be careful, and we'll see which way it goes. I do favor at least some more upside before we test 510. For the triple Q, watch 438 and 436 as supports. Watch 440 and 442 as resistance. It might come down a little bit and try to push with SPY to 440, and we'll see if we break this or not. I expect 440 to be tested. If we break that, a new all-time high could come towards 442. If we fail to do it, it could reject. So watch for a big test of 440. It might push a little bit higher to get up there, in my opinion. What else could help it is Nvidia. Nvidia is trying to break out of this resistance right over here. And this is very significant because it's trying to break some key levels. And that's going to be pivotal for the share price. So this is what Nvidia is looking like. We've gone above our resistance. I'm going to be watching this 800 area as a very, very tight level. You can see it did reject off this a couple of times simultaneously. So in my opinion, I'm going to be watching to see if Nvidia could break 800 up here. If we break this, 807 is coming next. If we break down, watch 790, then 782 and 776. I think Nvidia is going to come down, but because we're on an uptrend, right? We have this high here, higher high, another higher high, another higher high. It could break 800. I think it's going to test 800, and we'll see what it does after that. If we break it, we could be hitting 807 again. If we reject off 800, it could cause the markets to like pop and then reverse. But I think 800 is going to be tested, and I think we may attempt to break it. Nvidia definitely has potential to do so. So 807 is a real possibility, but watch and see if we break that resistance. Next, we have Aapl. Aapl, in my opinion, is not looking that great. It's been downtrending for the last couple of days. If you look at this, we had this lower high here, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? It's showing some weakness. Now, the thing about Aapl is it's just barely closing above 180. If we lose 180, there's 179.25, then 178 coming next. And for resistance, watch 181.36 and then 182.5. Overall, Aapl is trying to base at 180. It's pretty insane. It's been stuck for quite some time, but it's still looking kind of weak to me. It's not getting that nice break that I'm hoping for. I think tomorrow it might start a little bit lower than try to bounce and then just continue to trade sideways in this range, not really expecting too much from it unless we break this yellow trend line. If we break the yellow trend line, then it's going to turn bullish and 185 is coming. Otherwise, it's just range bound, kind of weak, not really doing a whole lot. So with that said, that is it for the main five I typically go over on TradingView. Let's just talk about a couple more real quick. So for Rivian to me is looking like it's going to reject a little bit right here, retrace just a bit towards 11. Then it might try to bounce and retest the 20 EMA. If we break this, we could hit 12. If we fail to break it, we may reject. So look for a little drop and then a bounce and see if we can break the 20 EMA or not. For SoFi looks to me like it's going to test 8.8 around that area. Then it might try to bounce off there. So watch to see if we get that bounce. If it fails to do so, it might retrace a little bit. So we'll see. Just be a little bit careful with it. Supermicro looks kind of bullish to me. It might try to break a little higher. Look for a back test of 8.8. And then if we try to bounce off that, we could be pushing for 900 very, very soon. So look for 900. I think it might be pushing for 900, drop a little bit, then hit 900. That looks very probable. For Palantir, looking bullish. I could be seeing this thing testing 25.58, so it might push a little bit more. If that breaks, 26 is a possibility. For the Russell 2000 IWM, I think this might retrace towards 202.5, maybe a little lower. It might actually hold around there, then try to bounce back up to 205. So look for a little retracement and a potential bounce if we do hold that support. That's a real possibility. For Microsoft, we look bullish. We actually have a nice inverse head and shoulders forming on the 4-hour time frame. We have a left shoulder here. We have the head down here in the right shoulder. It could push towards, in my opinion, 415, then eventually 420. This might help the QQQ to some extent and the NASDAQ. So look for a bounce on Microsoft. For Shopify, this is looking to me like it's going to be testing, it's going to retest 76.33. If we break this, 77.75 is coming. It has bullish potential in my opinion. For AMD, we look kind of bullish. We could be pushing for 200. Nice breakout. We're going to be looking to see if we get that move. For the VIX, in my opinion, is looking kind of weak on the 4-hour. We're going to be looking to see if we can fill this gap down here around the 12.8 area. It might drop a little bit more as the market tries to bounce, so wait and see. Looks kind of bearish for the time being. Same thing with the QQQ, looking a little bit weak. It could actually come down to 10.8 or even below that. And we also have the dollar index. The dollar index is still trying to push, but watch resistance at 104.24. We'll see if that rejects or not. If it rejects, it could actually help the market bounce. Coinbase, in my opinion, looking a little bit weak right now. We're going to be watching to see if we lose 196. If we lose this, I think it's going to test this. And then it might try to bounce after that. So it kind of, we had this big hit at 215. We came down. So that's why I was saying it's a little bit weak. But I think it's going to be testing 196. And then we'll see if it bounces off this or not. If we don't bounce, it wouldn't be that good. If we do bounce, we're going to be pushing back up to 210 plus. So I'm predicting it's going to come down a little bit, retest 196, and if it bounces, it's going to be pushing back up to 210. If it fails to bounce, it might turn a little weak. It's been downtrending for the last 2.5 days, so we'll see if we can get that bounce or not. But I still have faith in Coinbase to try to get that bounce. For Google is looking a little bullish. If we could try to break 140, look for a push for 141.7. If we fail to do so, if we reject, it could come back down. My guts tells me it's going to shuffle for some time and eventually get a break. Amazon's looking bullish. If we might come back down to the 175s to grab liquidity, then start pushing higher. I think it might be making its way up towards 180. And for Meta, as we predicted, we reached 490. We're going to be looking for this thing to try to hold above. This might come down to hit 488, then bounce off that and hit 494. I could be looking for more upside. The trend is still kind of bullish. So that being said, I want to remind you all about something, okay? There were a lot of people on YouTube who were saying, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. PC is going to crash us, right? I was the guy that told you, wait and see what's going to happen with the data. We'll be very patient. Okay. I also predicted that the market would drop and bounce. It didn't happen the way I thought it would. I thought we'd like gap down and then bounce. Instead, we opened, we popped, then we dropped, and then we bounced. So it was a little bit different, but not that far off. So with the market getting a bounce, we're still bullish on SPY. It's still bullish. It's still on an uptrend. Okay. With that being said, don't fall for all those people on YouTube who are saying every time we drop 1% in a day, or if we just have a few days of red, it means the market crashes. That is not actually the case. All right. So that being said, thank you for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. And then for Tesla, be very careful. The pattern on Tesla is not that great, but I'm not saying with 100% certainty it's going to crash. I'm saying that watch your levels and watch for confirmation first. See if Tesla gets a break or not, and see how Tesla reacts just to be safe, and see what the news tells us. All right, I'll be back tomorrow to report how things are looking. Don't forget, a lot of data is going to start coming out 15 minutes, then 30 minutes after the market opens, and we'll see how it goes. I'll be back tomorrow before the market opens to talk about how things are looking. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.